Cool. Tēnā koutou. Mai haere mai everyone. I'll begin with a karakia. Kia tau te rangi Māori o te rangi e tū iho nei, o te papa e takato nei, o te taiao e awhi nei, ki runga i a tātou, tihei mauri ora. No te kuiti ahau, kei te atutu ahau I noho ana, kei Sport Waitakere, Happy Families Waitakere ahau, I mahi ana, ko Caitlin, me kau ahau. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Whakamolo atu kia te koutou uma. No mai haere mai ki tēnei System Change in Action webinar. I want to acknowledge Tokelauan Language Week this week. We are joined by some awesome speakers from our friends in South Auckland. Welcome to Pita Alatini, Fila Thoimatu, Angie Piotau and Elizabeth Filimoimaka, who are part of the Healthy Families South Auckland team based at the Cause Collective. Big thanks always to my team member Priscilla Tui Samoa, who's also helping out online today too. Kia ora, Priscilla. To all of you listening in, while our speakers are talking, we welcome you to put any questions or comments that you have from them here on the chat on Zoom. If you're watching live on Facebook, just make a comment on there and I'll put your questions to them at the end. It might be that they answer your questions throughout the presentation, so we'll leave them right to the end. So I'll now hand the rako over to Fila. Fila, whakawhitai.
Talofa lava, kia ora Caitlin. Thank you for the warm welcome. Our team of 4 this morning is actually going to be led out by our brother here, Pita, aka Alatini, but I'm thankful for your warm welcome this morning. So we're good at throwing the ball. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, just I guess, to welcome our team members, but Ala's going to do that for us. So I'll pass the ball to Ala.
Malo Fila, malo lele Caitlin, Priscilla, and all our viewers today. Whamalo lahi, ke whainga Māori, ke whai haki I tala noa, me he ngau e nga mau whai, he Play Street Project. Ko whia ke taki no pe ki tala noa koe ni, ka ko whawhetake o tuaho no mai, ai whainga Māori ke mau whai ma ngau lele. So just greetings to all. Thank you so much again for the platform to share our work of Play Streets today with you guys. We've got some outstanding stars, like a team, you know, like a rugby team. From my background, it's also important to have some key members in your team, and that's what I feel I've got today. So just in brief, Peter Latini, I Tongan born. I married to Megan with 3 kids aging 26, 18 and 16. So Tanika, Tiara and Trey. And I've started work at the Cause Collective from February this year. So I'm fairly new to the team, and as you could see, throwing the ball very early to be leading this awesome project that we will talk about today. But before we start our presentation, I'd like to, Fila has introduced herself, but I'll go through to our team, our other 2 speakers for today, Elizabeth and then on to Andy. Marlo.
What's up, everyone? Lovely to see you all. I'm grateful to be in this space. My name is Elizabeth Filimoimaka. I am 27. Holy heckers, I'm getting old. Have worked at the Cause Collective just over a year now, but excited to be part of this talanoa. And you'll find out soon that I've been a resident in this Play Street area in Te Wirihana for 27 years as well. So excited to be part of this talanoa. Malo, go Superman.
Ala's already gone, but I'll go. Yeah, malole everyone. Andy Piotau here. One of the key roles I played here in Play Streets for Te Wirihana was just leading the neighborhood area over there alongside Liz. So we're definitely blessed to be able to share this part of their story. And you know, it's a bigger story, but we're so blessed to share a little part of it. So grateful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. So hand it back to Fila or Ala.
Malo team. Okay, so that's our team for today, guys. So we'll jump straight into it. I'll share my screen, and we'll start our presentation. Jeez, this is more nerve-wracking than a rugby game. Anyway, team, here we so Healthy Families South Auckland alongside our other Healthy Families whānau and family present to you guys. Do you want to play? So covering our project that we did with Play Streets early this year. Just an outline of our presentation. We'll go through the background. We'll have a little timeline to go through when Play Streets first approved, all the way to our reports at the end. Go through our 6 conditions of systems change, our Play Streets journey and process, which will be led by Andy. We'll talk about the impact of Play Streets within this particular area that we'll cover, which is the Celadon area, with our champion Liz. And then just some pieces of our neighborhood voice. We've got a video to play, also our artwork that's covered from our Play Streets as well. And then just to finish off, what has Play Streets will look like going forward. So just hand to Fila just to cover the background of our work.
Yeah, once again, talofa for our language week this morning. It's also talofa is Samoan, but I just want to give a little bit of a background. So our team is from the Cause Collective. We're a Pacific social change organisation. So we're focused on the social problems facing our communities in South Auckland, and we use different tools to be able to get to what is the heart of the problems that our communities are facing. And so within Cause Collective, we have a few initiatives, and Healthy Families South Auckland is one of them. So we lead out the initiative with the Southern Initiative, part of Auckland Council. And then I guess just our part within this project is we were asked by Auckland Council, actually the activation team, if we'd like to jump on board with a proposal that would go to Waka Kotahi. And so the proposal was actually to pilot out Play Streets in, I guess, South Auckland. So we would be the South Auckland pilot, and then to pilot it out also in West Auckland. So that was where we had our partnership with Healthy Families Waitakere, Healthy Families South Auckland, and with the Auckland Council activation team. And we also partnered with Auckland Transport. And that a proposal was approved in July 2020 last year. And that got us in the process of coming up with our own proposal from South. So what would be our proposal from South Auckland? So we actually have another initiative called One Love South Auckland. So we've got our t-shirts today. You might not be able to see it, but tagline for our initiative called One Love South Auckland is to spread the love one street at a time. So as well as our partnerships, we were also partnering with our community. So we have the One Love South Auckland in different areas and local boards. So we work within the local boards of Mangere, Otahuhu, Otara, Papatoi, Manurewa, and Papakura. So when we talk about South Auckland, we're referring to mainly those 4 local board areas, and the streets that we proposed to have our Play Streets was in Te Wirihana, Te Kānini, and Mangere. So that was our proposal, to try and have 4 streets, but we ended up with 3. And what we were really focused on was working with our community. So we were mainly proposing this project to our communities that are part of our One Love South Auckland initiative. And then what that allowed was us to work with them. So just got a few little notes here. I am going to read off my notes because I don't want to miss anything. And I guess it was really, if we're thinking about community-led, really then it's us providing opportunity for the community to lead. So you hear a lot about things being community-led, but if we're real honest, most of the times it's people telling the community how to do something. And that was probably the reservations for our team in the beginning to be a part of the project, was whether we would be told what to do instead of letting the community tell us how they wanted to design their play street. So I guess I'll just read these little notes and then that's probably, I'll pass the ball on. But the aim of our project was to support residents in the One Love South Auckland areas of Mangere, Takanini and Te Wirihana to plan, develop and implement an effective community play streets with the support of key stakeholders such as Auckland Council, Auckland Transport, the Southern Initiative. And this, the aims were that we would be able to co-design and deliver the play streets in the chosen play street areas, and that would be able to monitor and be able to see what worked. So probably our key question to our community was, what would a play street look like for you? So we didn't provide them with what the Sport New Zealand definition is. We asked them, what would a play street look for you? What would your community want to do? What do the kids want to do? So just wanted to set that as our, set the stage in terms of our approach, was really working with the community and what they defined a play street to look like. So I'll pass on, the ball to.
Malo Fila, and just as Fila's covered there, we've just got our play streets timeline of when we initiated and got approval from Waka Kotahi and Auckland Council back in July, and then the big planning stages between July and December. And then I think the work really did kick off from February onwards, when we started to really engage with our communities as in our One Love streets. And then I've just highlighted a couple of times with the Celadon street, because that's a street that we'll concentrate on today. The fact that we had all three worked really well and had changes in the areas through this play streets. We just we went with the Te Wirihana Celadon place for our presentation today. And as you see through, by the end of all our play streets, we had a play street champions dinner, where we invited all our play streets champions to come through with their families. And again, it was just exploring factors around how can we do this better in their eyes, and what will play streets mean for them going forward. And we'll touch on that near the end of the presentation. Oops, 6 conditions of systems change. This particular diagram is something I've had to learn very quickly as I started working the Cause Collective. And the beauty about this the system is that it really did, especially with my understanding when we did the Play Streets project, how it really did require some good work in these spaces to really get the shift that were required for our community to benefit from the play streets. So just to the right, I've got the icons of what I've just found, that we found that we built our play streets project around. We felt that relationships and connections was going to be a key dominating factor within the play streets project. You know, we knew that Waka Kotahi and Auckland Council were key providers in helping us in this project, but how could we work alongside them and really build a trust to understand that the community voice that we talk to will be heard while we're going through the process in this project. So just with our policies, I mean, the original policies for an event such as Play Streets, I think was marked as an event for any events amongst across the board in Auckland. So therefore a lot of paperwork. So we did really work hard with alongside these 2 providers to understand that should it go forth, our community won't be able to have the time to fill out such pages. So work hard together with them to be able to simplify and also easy enough should these go forth that the community will be able to handle. So again, that came over to best practice, and we knew, as Fila had touched on early on, and that as the Cause Collective, we had to listen to the community. So we knew that it had to be community-led, but how that was done was around building their capabilities, talking about workshops, getting them engaged, and then at the end, understanding the roles where they start to be confident to lead, and we step back and support and backbone the understanding from there. The resource funding, again, because this was funded, so it spoke to the community. What is it around play streets that looks like for them and what resources are required to suit their event on the day. So that was really important factor as well. And then covering at the end, what we saw is also our power dynamics, the fact that the reins could be lifted between the providers to us and then working together. And then at the end, in the end of that was getting to the mental models of transformational changes where we have the community leading each project as we went along. So, so it was a really good understanding around how the 6 condition systems change really do benefit a community when it's done accordingly. So just like to pass on the ball here to my man Andy, and he'll just run through the role that he played in our project. Malo.
Thank you, Ala. Yeah, so just part of our journey process, some of our key learnings that, like Fila had mentioned earlier, there were 3 play streets, and we were one of them, and we were based in Te Wirihana, and more specifically, Saladon Place. One of the key things we learned in our workshops and engagement was that it was important for us to have Liz as part of the team. So yes, she is part of the course collective, but she was, and Healthy Families South Auckland, but she was also a resident, like she mentioned earlier, lived there 27 years. And because of that genuine connection she had with her street, that meant we already had trust, we already had connection with them, and it was easier to work with them. The other thing that we found so when it came down to sending out invites to have people come into the office, in our initial session, there was no real, it was easy. So we were able to tell them a background of play streets. We were able to give them a simple one-on-one of what co-design was, the double diamonds, and how we wanted them to use it as a tool to understand their challenge around play streets, but also then create workable solutions or ideas around it. So we worked with them in the initial session. We eventually had 4 sessions with them. But in the initial session, they were able to create like 9 ideas, which had good descriptions of it, which they thought as that initial team, what would be the best thing to do in their street. And so they came up with ideas like a mini carnival, having a disco night, putting up a temporary skate park, having a street gym, maybe getting a street bin and just having everyone put their non-organic rubbish in. Having a fun day, or even repainting fences. So those were the kind of ideas that were coming out of them when going through that co-design process. And the good thing was that was just the start of it. Then we were planning with them, okay, it's one thing for them as a small team from the street, a small representative team, to come up with these ideas. The next part was for them to get feedback from their the rest of their neighbors on Saladon Place. And so we planned with them what was the best way to get feedback. They spoke about things like doing texts, emails, but eventually they came down to, nailed down to having a Good Friday barbecue, because one of the families who had been there for such a long time were moving out of Saladon Place. It came from them that the best thing to do was to get feedback by having a barbecue. And I think that's what really helped with the engagement, was that they were telling us what works best, and we were just going ahead with what they were saying. When it came down to capability building, one key learning that we found was it was important for us to not talk down to them. I think sometimes when we have community as the ground level, then many people think, you know, they're dumb, they're uneducated, they don't know better. But what we realized was it was treating them as equals and knowing that they already do this stuff in their own personal lives, whether it be in their families, whether it be at their workplaces, or even in their studies. It was just refocusing the same kind of approach to play streets. And so because of that approach, we found that they really just were more engaged. They took lead on it. And so when we ran that barbecue on Good Friday on their street, we ended up finding out that, 24 people wanted the fun day. 7 people wanted the disco night, 5 people wanted the skate park, and 3 wanted the street art. And so it was good just to get feedback from the rest of the neighbors and what they wanted. And so from there, we knew this is what they wanted to run with. And we ran with the fun day eventually. It had good description of it, and people were able to ask the team questions of, oh, what is the fun there? What is the skate park? And one thing we loved out of that was that it was like a mini Play Streets event, where initially it was just to have a barbecue, farewell that family, have them give a bit of feedback, but neighbors brought out trampoline, kids were playing with it, kids were riding their bikes and on their scooters. It even got to the point where parents and kids were playing touch in the middle of the street, and it just naturally happened. We didn't plan it, but it just happened. And so we got a little bit of a taste of what the event would look like. And we loved it because in the barbecue, we only, the team said, let's just do sausage sizzle and meat patties. But then the neighbors just brought out lettuce, tomatoes, bread rolls, eggs, and it was awesome because it was really a neighborhood event. And just on that last point around community lead and it being community led, one of the key learnings from there was allowing them to take charge and ownership from the get-go. From the beginning all the way to the end, it was ensuring that they knew this is your project. This is what you are going to do for your people, for your street. And so talking and using that kind of language really allowed them just to take charge and ownership, from planning the activities, from getting feedback, finalizing dates, times, getting quotes. All of it was done by them, even to the point where they then became proactive and they were saying, let's do t-shirts, let's do our own t-shirts, we'll design it, we'll bring in our own people even just to help volunteer on the day. They were even putting together their own street signs for the event. And so I really loved that it started with one thing, but they then became proactive and added all these other kind of things which made the event what it was. And so I think that's one thing that we really loved around seeing them just take the lead. They were able to look at the layout of the street and just say, hey, this is where we want our chill zone. This is where we want our sports zone. This is where we want the kids zone and the food zone. And it was awesome because they did it and we were just backboning and just allowing them just to, take the lead. So that's pretty much what our key learnings were from our journey process. That's it for me. I'll hand it over to Alan.
Hello, Andy. Awesome work, brother. Keep those biceps down, dog. I'd love to hand it over to our champion from Celadon, but also our TCC stuff, Fila. Wait, not Fila. Liz, sorry. Liz. Bye.
Love it.
Bye.
Andy, your part made me want to cry, giving me flashbacks. The impact. So since Play Streets, the residents actually didn't want to stop the meetups, the weekly meetups, and so they came up with the idea to have a Celadon Connect. And so then started off weekly as a connection hub for residents on Celadon just to go over, and it was at people's houses. So it was at one neighbor, and then another neighbor would offer their home, and they would host, cook meals, and jam with Bible study, and that's what started off the Connect Hub, or Celadon Connect. But that was since Play Streets, and I guess it allowed for trusted relationships across the street. And from there, also there was the equipment that was invested into the Play Streets for Celadon was kept on Celadon. And so it's in a shed at one of the neighbors, and there's street leads that look after it as well. And since Play Streets, there's been 2 or 3 mini Play Streets that they've had in the weekends for families to come out and play. And that's it during any time of the day. And yeah, that was usually on Sundays, where kids will just come running to the door and ask to play outside. And so it was cool. And what happened during those mini Play Streets, but led by themselves and directed by themselves, was more neighbors. There are new neighbors that moved in, and they made sandwiches when they saw kids playing outside. They just automatically came out with sandwiches, apples, drinks. And so it was real cool. And since lockdown, there's been Celadon Connect has still been happening on Zoom. And there's also extra support for themselves. And so sorry if you can hear the lawnmower. But there's been extra support from families just for themselves, I guess. So when one's going through something, they'll go to their neighbor. And it's really cool to see that. And that's all relationships that's been built strongly from play streets and that impact. And the other thing that's happened is food support has grown from the neighbors to neighbors. So one of the neighbors have been giving out food boxes, food packages to nearly every house on our street, on Saladon Street, since COVID, since the lockdowns, and they'll give that out weekly, if not fortnightly. And it's also because of these strong relationships, and they've built this trust with us from TCC Healthy Families, we're able to identify immediate needs real quick, because they're not afraid or not embarrassed to share with us. And I think that's real important and being key as well. But a lot of them are missing that, face-to-face contact rather than being on Zoom. And so there are times where they come out of their houses and just say hi from across the road. But yeah, that's just a little bit about the impact.
Hello, Liz.
Edge of the city. It's so damn hot and my neck is feeling gritty. I gotta find something to do, cause if I don't...
We got to meet the neighbours.
Yeah.
And planning.
Yeah.
Planning for our street to get together.
Seeing the kids out playing together.
We used to just come out and look at each other, go back in our house. Now it's like come out, say hello to each other, have a catch up. But since COVID hit us, so can't really do much.
What about yourself, Gina?
Impacted our neighbours by looking after each other and watching around houses.
Highlight was the planning nights at the Cause Collective. Food was on, meetings were cool, had some of the neighbours come through to plan things and make things happen. Seeing the kids out on the street was another highlight. Haven't seen that in a while actually. Probably like, it would have been like when I was 10 maybe. That was the last time the kids were out on the street. And getting all the equipment out, like the sports gear and the, what do we have, a bouncy castle, the candy floss machine, yeah. Those were the highlights. I just like being a part of it. That was cool. Yeah. All the kids together, like all the kids like know each other, they play together. I don't know, awareness of each other, I guess. Yeah, we got to, I don't know, meet each other finally.
Had some trouble with the guys at the door, cause everywhere we go it's like a show. You gotta watch your back because you never know. Rolling in the neighborhood.
How awesome is that? That does bring back some great memories, and then all our Play Streets project had their different own community way, but we felt with the Saladon Place, it really was led and shown right then, as explained by Liz early on. And another piece of work that we were able to ask to be created through this project, and I'll get Liz just to touch on it again, is it was I think it was an ex-resident of Liz's Street that is an artist and had come through with this piece of work for us. So, Liz.
Yo, so Alex Nip, he's Cambodian. He used to live in Wiri. Grew up together. he is a designer, I think. So we asked him to design what our street would look like, what Te Wirihana would look like overall. And then we got him to also design the actual play street, the 4 different areas, three different areas. And so this is just one of the designs that he's done for us. And it was, all of them will look different from each other because there were different activations that were happening in each street. And so, yeah, that's just,
Awesome.
looks
Looks real cool. Looks real cool. So, Alex, my lord. So what will it look like going forward? So what will play streets look like going forward? And I'll call Fila to come through and comment on a few of these, but even some of the showings, and especially from Liz and the Celadon Street, what we're starting to see is, you know, like almost like a neighborhood watch amongst each other, the support and the connection they have now. And I suppose the big part too is how Play Streets has really been a vehicle to really connect all these things together. Because at first, play as we understand, just being out and everyone having fun. But again, the evidence shown from Celadon is how much more can be built across Play Streets, you know, the neighborhood connections. And then for us is really, from the end, how can we look at this, growing this during the summer for our other One Love neighborhoods that we've gone through? How do we keep creating these champions, understanding that some champions may move on? So how do we keep that sustainable amongst the areas that we work along? So having workshops and leaders trainings will be something that we will be looking forward to. But I'll pass just to Fila to jump in and have a few comments on this space, please.
Thanks for the opportunity. I thought it was really important that the time was spent for Andy and Liz to actually share about the project. I mean, there was so much more that went on behind this. So, you know, before there were like 3 forms. If a community was to run a play street, there were these 3 forms that were how many pages that you would have to go through to tick. And something we said clearly was, if I was going to run a play street, I wouldn't want to fill in all those forms. So I guess just how many months it took to create just one form, and that form was much easier for the community to fill in. So I think just going forward, you know, there is so much potential for, I guess, play streets or play neighborhoods, as someone suggested. But we've always thought with our work in movement and sport is that it's a vehicle to so much more. We might be talking about physical inactivity, but through the play streets, you're able to build social connections. One Love South Auckland is all about building our social infrastructure, which is relationships. It's from the people that you're connected to that you can get support, the support that you need. And so many things happening even during COVID. You know, we're in a neighborhood and sometimes we can't reach people who are far away, that social services or organizations that could come and support us. But as Liz has spoken about, they can look now to their next door neighbor who might be able to support them with food or to chat with. So I guess just going forward, I put in the chat there a long explanation about what One Love South Auckland is. But I think you've heard it through Andy and Liz. If we work with our communities, our people, they've got the gold within. And it's being able to provide resources that are with Wakatu Kotahi, Auckland Council, that are for our community. And how do we access that better for our community so that they can be in charge and have the ability to be able to create opportunities for physical activity and social connection. So I'm looking forward to summer if we can play together, but if we could bring more resource to our communities to run things the way they want to. And the other thing is change the practice, change the way that our sector has a bit more of a stronghold on things instead of being able to allow our communities to say how they want to play, how they want to move. The more we hear about their compelling reasons to move and play, you'll see our communities playing and moving, as we've seen in the play streets.
Malo Fila. And that's pretty much, that's the golden team there, guys, from Celadon. Just a huge thank you to my team today for the presentation. Fila, my movement sport partner, but also to Andy who led the project, and then of course Liz, our champion. And huge thank you as well to Auckland Council and Waka Kotahi, the work that they had done in working alongside us to make it happen for our community. And then just final thank yous to our Healthy Families, Southern Initiatives, all our partners, but also for today, Caitlin and her team, Healthy Families Waitakere, and allowing us this platform to share this awesome work. It was so great, but just to have the opportunity to share Play Street South Auckland with you guys. Whakamālaolahi o tua o whātua.
Whakawhetai, Peter, thank you. Wow, guys, what an awesome, huge piece of work. Thank you, Fila and Pita. You gave a really good background and overview where the kaupapa came from, how it fits with other initiatives, and how right from the get-go in your planning and your processes, it was really important to have a community-led and resident, or led by the residents. Yeah, it was threaded all the way through, which was awesome. And Andy, it's always good to hear the learnings, isn't it, in this work? And you built a really good picture. I could imagine and almost smell what the engagement looked like with that barbecue. You painted a really good picture for us about what the engagement looked like. And then Elizabeth, thank you. You really added to that picture, and we could see what the impacts were, you know, even to the culture that was created on the street, and how new people, you know, that manaakitanga was just taken on, even new people that moved into the street. So yeah, awesome kaupapa, thank you. And I agree, Fila, we certainly know from the events that we held out in Waitakere, play streets are so much more than the actual play streets. So yeah, mihi to you all, thank you very much. We've had lots of acknowledgement and comments of support on Facebook, and also here on Zoom. And yes, thank you, Fila, for typing in lots of answers on the chat. I'll just have a quick look of what's got here, but yeah, lots of words of support. Thank you, everyone. I'll just go back to this one question from Viliami Toafa. Thank you, Viliami. She asked, why play streets? Kids were discouraged to play in the streets because of safety. What is happening to that? Fila, I know you wrote some comments, but do you guys want to just, for others who haven't seen the answers here on the Zoom chat, do you want to just talk to your comments and that question, if that's all right?
Awesome. Thanks for the question. I guess because Play Streets was a pilot, and we were joining the pilot that was put out there, and the reason why was because they'd seen there's a lot of physical and inactivity for young people, and not as many, I guess, young people seen playing out on the streets or out in the neighborhoods. So the pilot was to see what could be done. So the issue of safety, I guess, on a lot of the streets, kids won't go out because of the cars. There's a lot more cars on the road. And so our project was kind of a bit more focused on cul-de-sacs. So it was a bit more safe for our kids to play. But the safety aspect that we were looking at was, could families and parents allow their kids to go out to play and feel that they were safe in terms of social, where they lived. They didn't know whether they could trust whoever around, that they're going to just let their kids go out and play. So the importance of building social connections is that you would feel you could let your kids go outside and play because it's safe in that way. But the project was kind of looking, we looked mainly at cul-de-sacs, so that was safe already, but there's an issue of transport, Auckland transport, that there's a lot of more cars on the road. If you want me to share maybe one example, Jean Batten up the road from Mangere. So we did have a play street in Mangere, in Deborah Place, and we had a play street in Takanini, and that was in Cunningham Place. So there are schools that were located nearby. So there is a school, Jean Batten, who has had issues with safety on the road. So when transport came and changed the road design, a lot of things have happened on that street where it's been unsafe. And so we've been supporting a local resident, the residents, to actually go and talk to transport to make changes. So things like a pedestrian crossing not being put in once they change the road design. You can't drop your kids off at the main gate it's so far, yellow lines on the road. So how do we help advocate for our communities to make the roads safe with Auckland Transport? And we saw Play Streets as a way for us to have a better relationship too with Auckland Transport of how we can advocate here.
Thank you, Fila. I have a question, but I'm just going to open up the floor because we have some time. If anyone would like to make a question or a comment, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question to the team.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Bea.
Kia ora. I was just gonna say, big mihi to you guys, honestly. Like, you guys did amazing. And honestly, I wish I was there on those days that you guys got to do them. I was just gonna say a patai of, for instance, if somebody saw this webinar and they wanted to do this on the street themselves, like a community champion, what advice would you give to them?
Any of you can answer that question. Fila? Oh, pointing the finger.
Fila.
Checking the ball.
I think with our community, with the champions, if they're interested, I think the key is just like the process that we did with all our play streets around. If it's the champions that are keen for their street, would definitely get a meeting across side with only the champions and across their community and their neighbourhood. Touch base and see what is it exactly that they feel like as a play street to their community as such. And then it's just working the process of what I see and what we did really well was just building the capabilities, making them confident that they can actually take this on. And I think the other key is the resources. We were really fortunate in this pilot project that we had funding available straight away for the resources required, and the resources were dictated by them. Again, it wasn't what we wanted to give them, it's what they wanted for us to source and help them get. So I think in that space, if we're able to have those pieces of the puzzle done early, and then it's just working alongside them, I think there's always a part where we think at times we have to always lead, but working alongside them until they can really take the reins, and then we kind of just at that point we kind of switch lanes and step back a bit, and then just support them in whatever way. And as you can see, just even coming out to your guys' Play Streets Bay, it gave us an understanding, and we understand that every street's different. That was the hugest one of the biggest find, that Salon and the way they ran it was going to be different from Mange was going to be different from Takanini. So that was really good for us, because then it made us kind of just keep an open mind every time we spoke to our communities, and really made sure that we were listening intently to what they wanted and not our assumptions as such.
Okay. Thanks, Peter.
A question around Auckland Transport and how helpful they were in about that process, and did you have any issues around what if there was a local champion that wanted to do play streets in a street and Auckland Transport said no, not to that one, sort of how challenging are they to work with, and did they kind of come on board and turn up and sort of celebrate with the community or not?
Awesome question there. I guess the Auckland Transport team that we were working with were they were good in knowing about placements, I guess, of streets. That so we were clear on saying that we wanted to ask the residents first about the streets, and so in the beginning they were saying give us the streets that, but we were saying, oh, actually we have to engage with our communities first to ask them which streets. So that was probably one thing in the beginning. The second part was probably, it was around the time of the America's Cup. So they were quite busy with different things. I think they've got their own processes they have to go through. So being able to allow other streets to start first when they were ready. So that's the other thing, being ready when the community's ready. So it for us out south, we were newbies, so we were okay. We were late starters, but maybe someone else online, I won't say, might want to answer. They were ready to start their streets, but Auckland Transport weren't ready. They didn't have capacity. And then probably the other thing with Auckland transport is we did ask, someone had to come out to our streets to make sure it was safe. So we did notice that it was only just a short time. So we suggested in the future, have something where you have a little bit more engagement with the community before the actual event. So they didn't just come before your event starts or looking at a Google map. Get them to come out and see your community champion where the street is, engage with people. So I would say we were probably Shalima helping them to understand how to work with the community, and hopefully they'll take those lessons going forward.
So the communities that were involved in the Play Street project, are they able just to, whenever they feel like it, get out equipment and play on the street without any Auckland Transport permission sort of going forward? Can the community, whichever street, if it's able to access equipment, so for example, if you put up a shed and fill it with cool equipment, can any street then jump in and have an event? Is it and I'm just wondering about the health and safety around the organisations involved in that, because that's what we want, we want communities empowered just to get out and be doing it all the time, and I'm just wondering what the the support from Auckland Transport is around that and safety.
That's a great question, because we had the same thoughts as well, like knowing that this was a pilot and that support will be there for now, what will it look like going forward. And a lot of it was around, like Fila said, we had to get their paperwork down first if they were to run one. But we also found that, you know, the streets with the cul-de-sacs, they pretty much organically can close and play because it's safe enough. But it's just that I suppose what was missing was just the communication part between the neighbours and everyone to know when they may take part and they all can jump in. But I think with the harder ones, like I think Cunningham Road to Takan, and he's got a bit of a kind of like a main road beside the little closed off area, and there were kind of community saying that there is a lot of speeding that gets done there. So I suppose that was probably the areas where you would have to kind of work in time with Waka Kotahi to, but like it was still quite a simple process. Again, it was just understanding for the community what they have to do if they were to put forth, but making it simple enough that they can fill out those forms, be granted allowance to do such an event, and then for the kids to play in safety. That was probably the biggest challenge, was if there was a main road that was very busy with cars, that would kind of need more of the Waka Kotahi. But those with the little cul-de-sacs, you could really work in tight with them to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter and Shalima, for your questions. Kia ora. I'll just check, we've got one more question. We have lots of comments that just keep coming through on Facebook and here, lots of words of acknowledgement.
Probably, Caitlin,
yeah.
Could I just, there was one group that we did also, we were asked to try and engage with, and that was at Ihumato. So we went to engage with the local marae there to see if they'd come on board. And I don't know if you all know about Ihumato, but they had shut their road, the main road, down because of all the traffic, and then of course with the land issues there as well. So for us to be able to come and present the Play Streets project to them and talk about asking permission to Auckland Transport to shut the road, that was a hard part there. So they didn't actually end up doing a Play Streets with us, but then they also shared about how just in terms of being Māori, and they felt that it was a great initiative, but they also wanted to have their power too, that they were not willing to ask for permission to close a road when they actually do close the safe streets, like the cul-de-sacs we work with. We're fine, like Ala said, it's organic, you just play, everyone knows it's safe. But in terms of what they were asking for is if they were to do a Play Street, ask permission, but their main issue was the main road, and it's not safe for their kids to go to the playground because of the speeding trucks. So I thought I'd just share that, which will come out in the full report, hopefully. Just that they wanted to, but that was why they didn't carry on with the pilot.
Is there any sort of fear or risk around like encouraging kids to play on the street through this initiative, and then what happens if because of that the kids go out and then play on the street without any adults around or something, and then something happens and one of them gets run over? Because it's sort of like mixed messages to kids. You're saying, hey, let's go out and play on the street. It's a cool, safe community thing to do. And then, I don't know, just around those mixed messages.
I think for this, what I found, it's definitely, we couldn't compare it back to what it was for us when we played in streets, where it was, I suppose, in terms of transport, minimal around the streets, and regardless if it was, the kids will play anyway. But I think the biggest piece is the connection piece around the neighborhood. So part where we're worried about safety, but when your neighborhood's connected, a kid will be watching after a kid, or there'll be people outside to be watching, rather than just the one or two that'll go out and play. I suppose that because of the connected of the neighborhoods, they will have more people out at that time to watch, especially if they know. I think that's what kind of highlighted to all our communities, just the importance of the traffics and understanding in their road, and kind of even with cars coming through, they could see it from afar, and then they'll just slow down. When we had, this was on the prototype, I can remember with Celadon, that Easter Friday, if cars were coming in and out, all the kids just knew, oh, coming out, and they'll just move aside. And so I think there's a real big connectivity piece around your neighborhood to have and be shown around before you can kind of really, kind of let out, and then understanding your actual roads will be pretty important across too.
And were all your residents supportive? Like, I know, like even like in a community like ours, we've got a few people that drive really fast and might object to the road being kind of closed off, and stuff like that.
The key one was, I think, that the Tamahia village who were kind of heading our one in Takanini, because they're a village, most people don't really kind of engage with them, and most of the community on the outside haven't really communicated or connected with anyone. But since that play street, because they were so interested, they came across and they all started meeting. And now there's that main road that used to be quite dangerous. Now they actually, all the neighbors are all watching out, making sure that's slow, especially if the kids are around to play. But I think that's definitely a big part when with our streets, they were all pretty connected, and then they were all kind of working for each other. And like I say, Celadon's really taken it to the next level. We're just hoping to build the champions and influences in the other streets to do the same and go through.
Can I just add, sorry, also in the process of just before Play Streets, residents had gone around the houses and door knocked, just so that everyone was aware on the street. So not just some houses knew, but every house on the street knew and was aware of what was happening on the street. And so what's happened now on the street is, if they do want to do if they want to play outside, they'll know, because there's been consistency in when they do come out. And there's also, the residents have made up their own process and what equipment, when you take out equipment, what does that look like? Who do you contact? Who are the street leads that you can connect with? And then the kids kind of, they click on and they learn really fast as well. And so they'll close off half the street towards, a couple houses, and all those houses will come out to play as well, or they'll come out and supervise and watch, and each time they come out, it's a different adult that's supervising or that's responsible for ensuring that the kids are safe, and also that the equipment is well taken care of as well, and that they're all having fun. And if there's a child that's crying because no one's sharing, and then they learn on the spot. Learn on the spot, even if you're not a parent yet, how to look after that situation. But yeah, it's fun, and it's important that the residents are navigating how to do that themselves, rather than being told how to do it and how to look after their own street. Because at the end of the day, like, it is your street, you know it best, and you know how best to connect with your neighbors.
Kia ora, Liz and Shalima, thank you. All really important things to think about when we talk about scaling this initiative, isn't it? It's, how does it happen in other streets, and what are all those many little things to think about? Okay, we will close. I really want to acknowledge Fila, Elizabeth, Peter and Andy. Thank you so much for sharing your kōrero today. And everyone who's listening, we've got a few people left. Ngā mihi kia koutou, katoa mō tō tautoko. Thank you for listening, and I'll just close us with a karakia. Pau hihiri, pau rarana, pau o te tangata, pau o te araha, te pau hihiri nei i a tātou, mauri ora ki a tātou, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Tō whakoutou, thank you very much.